order paper as member statements. For the benefit of members new to the Assembly, I want to provide a brief outline of how members' statements are managed in plenary. If members wish to make a statement, they should do so by rising in their place. Those members who are called will have up to 3 minutes to make their statement. Any member whose statement is not compliant with the provisions of Standing Order 24A will be asked to resume their seat. Standing orders provide that when selected a member to make a statement, I shall have regard to the balance of opinions in the Assembly, and I shall therefore ensure that in any period set aside for this business, I select members from a range of parties. However, it is unavoidable there will be occasions when it will not be possible in the time available to select all members who wish to make a statement, and as with all items of business, it is not in order to challenge my selection. I will ensure that over time, all members who wish to make a statement have a fair opportunity to do so. Members should further note that statements will not be subject to debate or questioning, interventions will not be permitted, and I will not take any points of order on this or any other matter until the item of business has finished. If that is clear, I will begin. The first member I have to make a statement is Jonathan Buckley, MLA.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I rise very much on a celebratory note this first thing on Monday morning, because I attended a first this weekend alongside my colleague, Assembly colleague Tom Elliott, and that was to celebrate the 100th birthday of Loughgall Football Club living legend Hilbert Willis. A remarkable achievement for anybody to reach the 100th year milestone. But Hilbert is not just an ordinary man. He is somebody that has put his life, heart and soul into Loughgall Football Club, serving for some 30 years as its groundsman, 10 years as its chairman, and still active to this very day. Hilbert most recently wanted to put his best foot forward to try to raise funds for the club during COVID-19 to complete 100 laps of the pitch. He was joined by visiting dignitaries from football clubs right across Northern Ireland, and I know that he is held in such high esteem right across the sporting community. Hilbert has had a long and enduring life. Born in February 1924, he has seen such an array of changes throughout his time on earth. When we look at Northern Ireland in a sense, Hilbert has lived through much of its existence. He told me on Saturday that he still remembers ploughing the fields with the horses, a remarkable mind and a remarkable individual. And I know members of the House would join with me in wishing him well as he celebrates his 100th year. For the avoidance of doubt, Mr. Speaker, Hilbert is somebody that probably will be tuning in to the comments that have been said about him, not only in this House and right across the sporting spectrum. Liam Beckett led the MC event in Loughgall Football Club as they put on an event for him in the football club on Saturday. And we were just shocked at just how mindful people right across the sporting community from all backgrounds were of this significant achievement that Hilbert has made. The Hilbert Willis stand now stands proudly at Loughgall Football Club, and I'm told he hasn't yet missed a game this year. In all weather conditions, Hilbert Willis is an icon and a legend at Loughgall Football Club, and I'll finish in that usual football chant, known now in Loughgall, there is only one Hilbert Willis. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Buckley, and well within the 3 minutes. And I'd encourage members to do that, because it will ensure that we get as many in as possible. Colin Gildernew.
Gormagat, Concordia, and I want to thank you for providing the opportunity to make what I believe is a very important statement today in relation to the support, or indeed, members, the lack of support that we provide to unpaid or informal carers. And it is clear that even before COVID, there was serious pressures within that sector in terms of providing support. Unpaid carers provide up to a third of all care here in the North. The entire health and social care system would literally collapse without those carers. And the danger is that we are overseeing a system whereby carers individually are collapsing, care is breaking down as a result of unsustainable pressure. In relation to adult respite services and complex needs in particular, in my own constituency in Dungannon, Woodlawn House, before Christmas, an 8-bed unit had to close as a result of inadequate provision for that sector. immediately 8 families where their respite was cancelled. They had nowhere to send their loved one for that period of time. That is absolutely no reflection on the staff throughout the health and social care system, or indeed Woodlawn House, who are, in the face of huge pressure, trying to do the best they can, but there are 2 great staff vacancies and there's not enough recruitment and retention. We need to urgently see staff getting the pay that they deserve to deal with that retention and recruitment issue, but we also need to plan for better respite services. A full 1/3 of informal unpaid carers over the past 12 months have received no respite whatsoever, and the State of Caring report from Carers NI demonstrates that that leads to much worse outcomes for them in terms of mental health, physical health, loneliness, and all of these provide a challenge to them. So I would ask the Minister of Health, and indeed any other department or minister who has a role in terms of carers, and I hope in this mandate we can put in place some additional support for our badly pressed carers.
Paula Bradshaw.
About an issue that I receive a lot of communication about in my constituency office, and that's about the lack of commissioned services in the health and social care trusts for the diagnosing and treatment for people with ADHD. I'm sure that many others in this chamber will also have been contacted by people who are frustrated that they've been unable to secure a diagnosis through their local trust, which leaves them with 2 main options. The first is that they can go on a waiting list. In my own area, in the Belfast Trust, it is approximately 5.5 years that a young person can expect to wait, whereas last week I heard from a constituent that they've been advised that the waiting list for adults has grown now to 8 years. The other option for people is to seek a private diagnosis, and we know that this option, when delivered in line with NICE guidance, can cost up to £1,800. And many people have told me that they've had to borrow this money, causing great financial hardship to themselves and their family just to obtain a diagnosis. It should also be noted actually that many private providers have now even closed their own books, such is their own backlog for new assessments. But Mr Speaker, those with a private diagnosis are not that much further forward. They then require a shared care agreement between their GP and their private consultant, and the vast majority of GPs are reluctant to enter into these agreements as there is substantial risk from this medication that is on the amber list. So the people with private diagnoses are forced to pay privately again for their review appointments and for their medication. I have spoken to the leadership of all the health and social care trusts about this issue. They all would like to deliver an ADHD assessment and treatment service. However, it has not been commissioned by SPPG, the Strategic Planning and Performance Group, which is the commissioning body within the Department of Health. The societal impact from the lack of diagnosis, treatment and care is far-reaching. Parents have told me about their struggle to support their children through their primary and post-primary education, dealing with high levels of anxiety and difficulty with concentration. Students coming to study in Queen's University in my constituency have told me about their inability to find a GP who will allow for the continuation of prescriptions for their medication that has stabilised their condition for many years in their own home country. But it is worth reflecting, Mr Speaker, on what happens when we get this right. One man recently told me that when he was able to find the correct medication for his condition, he has been able to significantly grow his business and take on more staff. Mr Speaker, we have to get this issue sorted to allow the Trust to recruit and/or train suitably qualified psychiatrists to get their services up and running, and we cannot lose any more time in the commissioning process. Thank you.
Call Mr John Stewart.
Mr Speaker, on Friday, customers of the Carrickfergus branch of Danske Bank and several other locations across Northern Ireland received word that their branch would close in June. This is devastating news both for Carrickfergus High Street and for retail banking throughout East Antrim. In the past 5 years, 5 High Street branches have closed in Carrickfergus and 10 others collectively across Larne and Newtonabbey. When I spoke, Mr Speaker, to the representative from Danske Bank on Friday, he told me that customers shouldn't worry and that their accounts would be seamlessly transferred to the Abbey Centre branch 9 miles away. This is little comfort, I'm sure, to the many elderly customers who rely on branch access for deposits and withdrawals on a daily basis. When I pointed this out to him, I was told that customers could use post offices to make deposits and withdrawals. He was clearly unaware that Carrickfergus Town Centre no longer has a post office, the last one closing over a year ago. Mr Speaker, it is wholly unacceptable to assume or demand that every single banking customer will use online banking. Elderly and disabled customers, businesses, charities and many other organisations rely on branch access, yet rapidly they are disappearing from our towns and villages. Last year, the UK Government introduced the Financial Services and Markets Act 2023, but it has failed to address the issue of bank closures across the UK, a number which totals hundreds each month. A recent report, Mr Speaker, from Advice ANI found that 90% of the population use a bank at some point in the year and 40% use a local branch at least once a month. But despite the assurances and platitudes from well-prepared PR teams, the reality is that the banking industry simply don't care about customers. If they did, they wouldn't be closing branches at the speed they're doing it. Mr Speaker, we need an incentive and a legal requirement for a minimum level of local branch access for our banking customers. We all know the pre-rehearsed arguments that banks make. They say that cash use is significantly down since 2015 and that branches and ATMs are less profitable. But banks aren't charities, in fact far from it, and they're hugely profitable organisations. Danske Bank, for example, who've announced this closure, had a pre-tax profit of £103 million last year, and the banking industry has collectively netted profits of £17 billion since 2015. With such massive windfalls, surely the industry can afford to maintain a basic level of cash access network. Mr Speaker, to finish, I have written to the Minister of Economy asking him to work with ministers in Westminster to put more pressure on banks to stop these never-ending closures, starting with the Danske Bank in Carrickfergus. And I also call on the Minister and everyone in this chamber to support the volunteers who are ready and waiting to set up a series of community banks across our towns and villages. They are dedicated to providing sustainable, not-for-profit banking at the heart of our communities, even if the big institutions are not. Thank you, Mr Speaker.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Last week was a period of profound and historic change in Northern Ireland. Yet for all the change that has been brought to this Assembly, the change that I'm focused on is the change that is needed for our economy. I was glad to hear the First Minister note the importance of regional balance last week, because the truth is that the effects of the Government's economic investment strategy over the last 2 decades have been to let the areas that have done well to do even better still. That has resulted in profound imbalances in our economy and a postcode lottery for jobs and opportunity. The difference in the level of employment and economic inactivity between the highest performing regions and the lowest performing regions is around 10%. And there's still a huge disparity in the levels of earnings and disposable income between people in different places. Places like North and West Belfast, where levels of poverty are the highest anywhere in Northern Ireland. Places like Fermanagh, starved of infrastructure development. And yes, places like Derry and the North West City region, where we are still a city without a university of size that was promised, without the investment that has been pledged, and without the jobs that were so badly needed. But I didn't get involved in politics because of how bad things are in Derry. I got involved because of how good things could be. Derry and the wider city region is the only metropolitan urban area of scale outside Belfast able to compete with cities across this island. But more than that, to invest in Derry is to invest in the whole of the economy, since it is there that special intervention will have the most transformative impact. So the opportunity before us is huge. Making the most of that opportunity won't happen overnight, but neither will it happen by accident. It requires deliberate and proactive policies and interventions. It requires affirmative action to address the decades of neglect. It requires positive discrimination to tilt the balance of our economy and to ensure that everyone has a fair chance to succeed. That positive discrimination must take the form of legislation, and as such, I will be proposing a new law that will change the way this place works, so that we finally prioritise regional balance in jobs, skills and investment. This legislation will create binding targets on departments and accountability in our government. It would finally reform Invest NI, and it would expand our higher education provision in the North West. So as this mandate starts, let's resolve it not to be the same as the last. We need to change the approach if we're going to rebalance our economy. Warm words alone about regional balance just won't cut it. And even commitments in the programme for government won't be enough. We've heard them, seen them all before. Let's get this done.
Please.
Well, I'd like to take this, my first opportunity to speak in the Restored Assembly, to raise the importance of having the A5 road upgrade delivered as a matter of urgency. And firstly, I'd like to welcome the commitment from Michelle Neal in her inaugural address as First Minister that the delivery of the A5 road upgrade is a priority for the newly established executive. And I also welcome Infrastructure Minister John O'Dowd's commitment and determination to progress the A5 and to make its delivery a priority. Unfortunately, due to legal challenges by a small minority, there's been significant delays to this project. And I join others in urging these objectors to reconsider their challenges and to instead consider how deadly this road is, and to think of the many lives that have been lost and the many people and communities left devastated by the death of loved ones, because this road simply is not fit for purpose. I raised the issue of the safety of the A5 in the last Assembly mandate following the death of 3 young men over Christmas 2021. I'm saddened to say that this road has taken more lives since then, again with families in our communities having been torn apart with devastating loss. It is a heartbreaking reality that until the A5 is upgraded and made safe for users, it will continue to take lives. The recent public inquiry reflected the widespread support for the A5 upgrade from the local community, business leaders and from the many families affected by the loss of loved ones on this road. And I'd like to take this opportunity to commend and thank Tyrone GAA and the work that they've done through their Enough is Enough campaign and for their participation in the public inquiry. The Enough is Enough campaign was very successful in raising awareness of the dangers of the A5. It highlighted the devastating impact that the loss of life on the A5 road has had on individual families and on local communities, and it expressed urgency required in delivering the upgrade. I'd also like to pay tribute to and thank all of the families who have lost loved ones on the A5 for their contributions to the inquiry and for their determination in ensuring this project is completed. They've shown great strength and dignity through very difficult times. So we cannot accept any more delays to the upgrade of the A5 road, and I look forward to working with the Executive to ensure that the delivery of the A5, and again urge those who have so far delayed progress to the development to reconsider their objections.
I call Mr. Stephen Dunn.
Congratulations on your elevation as Speaker. I would like to take this opportunity to pay tribute to one of our all-time footballing greats who has recently retired from professional football, Mr. Stephen Davis, MBE. Stephen Davis will go down in history as one of Northern Ireland's greatest ever footballers, up there with the late and great George Best, the safe pair of hands Pat Jennings, and our record goal scorer David Healy. And I think it's fitting and appropriate that his recent retirement from professional football is marked in this House today. During his remarkable career, Stephen earned 140 caps for Northern Ireland, playing for his country for almost 20 years since his debut back in 2005. Stephen is also the most capped British player in the history of football, which is an exceptional achievement for a player from our wee country. Stephen Davis has always been an outstanding professional, role model and an exceptionally gifted footballing talent who has inspired so many throughout his glittering career. Stephen was rightly honoured with an MBE by the late Her Majesty the Queen for services to football back in 2017. He is greatly admired across the football fraternity in Northern Ireland and beyond, and has given us all so many great memories over the years, not least leading our country to qualification and into battle in the European Championships in France back in 2016, an unforgettable experience and journey for so many of us. Stephen also enjoyed a very successful club career, chalking up 742 club appearances in top-flight football in England and Scotland. And Stephen won trophies with his boyhood club, Glasgow Rangers, and excelled for many years in the Premier League with top clubs such as Southampton, Fulham and Aston Villa. Thank you for your incredible service, Stephen Davis MBE, and enjoy a well-earned break. I have no doubt Stephen will continue to make a major contribution to football in Northern Ireland for many years to come. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You call Ms. Emma Sheeran.
Corlia agus congratulations there the post nua. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and congratulations on your new role. And I am rising today to offer congratulations to another group of people, and that is the team, the management, the committee, and everybody else associated with Waddy Graham's GAC in Glen. After they successfully lifted the Andy Merrigan Cup just 3 weeks ago on the 21st of January, the first time they won an All-Ireland Club Championship, and a massive achievement for everybody associated with Glen. The buzz around the town in the lead up to the game and since has been palpable, and the celebrations went beyond Mahara, even heading further up the 5 Mile Street than they really should have. But their win has given everybody in Derry and everybody associated with GA, I suppose, across Ulster, a lift, and gives inspiration to those of us in Ballinascreen who haven't won a county title since 1973, that maybe that is possible for us as well. So I just want to offer them congratulations and reiterate our support. Thank you.
Mr. Paul Fruit.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Gandhi, I think it was, who said the true measure of any society can be found in how it treats its most vulnerable members. This chamber and the elected members within it is supposed to represent society, yet it turns its face away and tries to ignore a certain type of people who have been seriously injured and bereaved. Of course, Mr. Speaker, I talk about the COVID-19 vaccine injured and bereaved. Over the last 2 years, Mr. Speaker, I have met with people who have lost loved ones. And I have met with people who have been seriously damaged. And they live with that damage every day, to the point some wish to take their own lives. But what hurts them just as much as their injuries is the fact when they try to gain assistance from their MLAs and MPs, they are given the cold shoulder. They are ignored or gaslit. Mr. Speaker, that's not acceptable, because as long as the history of man and medicine, we know that medicine can cause side effects and adverse reactions. So why do so many people in this House turn their face away from people who have serious injuries that just happen to be from medicine? Why do you turn your face away from those people? And I say that I have worked extremely hard with the support groups, both here in Northern Ireland and in UK. FIBS NI here in Northern Ireland, and UKCV Family, and FIB UK in UK. And they do tremendous work trying to support these people. Some that have injuries that the medical profession are completely flummoxed with. They just do not know what way to go or what way to create a care pathway for these people. And they need your support. They need people to represent them. And they are being ignored, Mr. Speaker. There was to be an event held in this place for COVID-19 injured and bereaved, vaccine injured and bereaved. And parties here blocked it. Sinn Féin and the SDLP. Alliance told them, Mr. Speaker, that this isn't the place for them. They should meet in a community centre. I ask now and I plead, would every member of this House search their heart and give those people the recognition and acknowledgement they deserve? Thank you.
I call Mr. Tom Elliott.
Mr. Speaker, and I rise to raise the issue of the proposed job cuts in Enniskillen by BT and EE.
Urgent question has been accepted in that matter, so in principle you can speak to that at a later point if you don't mind. Call Mr. Jim Allister.
Thank you. Yesterday in North Antrim we buried one of the greats of our education system. I refer to the sudden, sad passing of Mr. Tom Skelton, the principal of Dalriada School in Ballymoney. Mr. Skelton epitomised everything that a headmaster should be in terms of the leadership, the vigour, and the vision with which he led Dalriada, and the indelible mark that he has made for good on so many generations of children will live on long after him. I want to again put in the record our sympathy to his wife, to his 4 children, his sister and the wider family. We have truly lost a great in North Antrim. I then want to turn, Mr. Speaker, to the discrimination against minority voices in this Assembly in regard to the committee allocations. Last week we had a carve-up by the main parties, and then an offer of the crumbs to the 4 of us in this corner of the Assembly. And of course, crumbs which didn't meet any of the desires of those of us sent here on an equal mandate with everyone else. And of course, the Business Committee was made sure that there was no representative from this corner until this carve-up was completed. And the result, of course, in my own case, was that I have been denied a place of the EU Brexit Committee because deep dive scrutiny is not what is required. Rather, it is the form rather than the substance of scrutiny that the protocol of implementing parties in this House wish to see. But on that committee or not, elsewhere, I will continue to shine a light onto the dark deeds of colonial rule from the EU in this place. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I want to raise the very considered and irrefutable contribution of Lord Dodds, Lord Morrow and Sammy Wilson in Saturday's newsletter, when the spin and the myth from the DUP leadership about the Irish Sea border being gone, about Northern Ireland's place being restored within the United Kingdom, about the DUP's 7 tests being met, was well and truly exploded. The disassembling of the DUP leadership was demolished in that article. And I would encourage others in this House who share the trio's truth to speak up and not to hide their light under a bushel or be intimidated out of saying what they really think.
I call Declan McAleer.
Concordia, and I want to commend you on taking up your position as well. Firstly, I'd like to congratulate the Omagh Christian Brothers School on their stunning back-to-back victory in the McCrory Cup yesterday against St Patrick's Academy in Armagh, or Dungannon. And I want to commiserate St Patrick's on the day, but it was a great game of football in an all-Tyrone encounter. This is a very significant year for the McCrory Cup. It's the centenary. It's the 100th year of the McCrory Cup. And a significant milestone for the Omagh Christian Brothers because it's 50 years since they first won the McCrory Cup back in 1974. I want to congratulate the team and the players. It takes a lot of commitment, dedication and hard work to reach this level and to balance all the hard challenges of their schoolwork and other things in their lives. I want to acknowledge the work of the coaches, teachers, parents and the Armagh County Board for having the pitch and facilities in such great condition for yesterday's game. I also want to commend the Ulster School Council for organising this great competition. It caters for 130 schools and involves over 1,800 games in an academic year. And it means a lot to communities, it means a lot to feeder clubs, and the buzz in the athletic ground in Armagh yesterday was absolutely palpable. I also want to commend the Abbey School on their victory in the McLaren Cup against Our Lady and St Patrick's Knock yesterday. So in conclusion, I want to congratulate the Christian Brothers. I want to take the opportunity to wish Omagh CBS all the very best as they set out now to win back-to-back Hogan Cups. I
call Jerry Carl. You've got 2 minutes, Mr. Carl.
Speaker, this morning I was compelled in my constituency to visit the home of a refugee family who were facing eviction from their home. I was there because housing campaigners in Catu and fair play to them had issued a call to the community to prevent this family who came here fleeing war, persecution from being put out on the street. And I'm sorry to say, Mr. Speaker, this isn't an isolated incident. Like too many others, this family have been served notice by the private firm Mears, which acts under the direction of the racist Tory government and its cruel hostile environment policy. Evictions are just one of the punitive measures meted out against asylum seekers and refugees. And essentially we have a situation where families who are finally granted secure status are being told that they have to leave their home. Mr. Speaker, goes out saying that our party thinks a private firm should not be allowed to profit from our asylum system. They certainly should not be allowed to evict people out of their homes. The forced eviction of people who have fled war, poverty and persecution is reprehensible, and this racist Tory administration has been ruthless and systematic in denying the rights of asylum seekers. While banned from working and living in absolute poverty, asylum seekers are routinely housed in appalling accommodation. Forced eviction would deny them what little rights they already have. My question today, Mr. Speaker, is what is this executive going to do about it? The Executive Office's draft refugee integration strategy claims to want a society where asylum seekers and refugees are, I quote, valued, safe and integrated in the communities. How can that be possible when refugees are being forced from their homes, forced to move to who knows where, with their children forced to leave school and their lives torn asunder? Human rights organisations and housing campaigners have already written to the Secretary of State calling for a ban on these evictions. This executive needs to support that call as a bare minimum and ensure that refugees are afforded the opportunity to stay in the communities they now are a part of. I think this executive also needs to decide if it will stand over the Tories' racist, hostile environment policy or whether they will resist implementation of it.
Thank you. I'll just ask members to note this. If members are asked to draw their remarks to a close and they don't do it, that will be reflected when they're being called on future occasions. So if you don't want to take your seat, you might be remaining in it a lot more. Next item of business is a motion on the membership of statutory committees. Clerk, please read the motion.
That Standing Order 21 be suspended for Monday the 12th of February 2024.
Clerk.